Good morning. Welcome to another installment of our virtual seminar Grove. We are very excited to be brought to you by Cedar City Bryan Head and Tourism Bureau. And once again, we have a very group of electric individuals that are here to join us this morning. These are good friends of ours that we haven't had at the festival for a number of years. And I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to embark on today. Richard, who do we have here with us, and what are we talking about?
Thanks, Michael. Hi, I'm Richard Girtain. I'm the production manager for the festival. And today we are talking about production management. We're going to try and hopefully let you know what we do and sort of what that's all about. And I'm really excited to have some of our wonderful colleagues here, folks I've worked with in many places, including the festival. And I just want to take a moment to introduce each of them to you so you can get to know a little bit about them. And then we're going to dive into what production management is all about. Trevor Long, can you give us a little bit about your background and how, what you've done with the festival?
Sure. Actually, I'll start now and then I'll jump backwards, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So right now I'm one of those kind of displaced theater makers, I'm looking for the next opportunity. Happy to talk to you if you run a theater company, we'll get in touch with me through Michael, that'd be great. So back in the olden days, I was an actor, and this was, let's see, summer of 91-ish, somewhere in there. And I kept doing work as an actor, and I started going to school for that. The summer of 94, I had a job fall through, an acting gig fall through. And I was stressed because I needed the money. I needed to have a job at that point. And I found this poster at the school where I was going for the Utah Shakespearean Festival. And this was back in the days where the poster actually had a phone number on the bottom of it. And you would call the phone number and somebody would answer. In this case, it was Mitzi McKay at the time. And she assured me that they were still, in fact, looking for people, asked me how I felt about moving scenery. And I said, I feel like I could probably do that. And then she said, hang on a second, I'll have somebody else call you. And it was the production manager at the time, Kelly Allison, called me back.
Wow.
And said, hey, do you happen to know your measurements? Yes, I do, actually, because I'm an actor. And he said, that's great, because we need costumed stagehands for a couple of shows. So I'm your guy. And the summer of 94, went out and worked with USF. And that was my first kind of direct interaction with professional stage managers, because I had a lot of downtime backstage and I was hanging out with the stage managers. Through talking with them, I realized that was probably the career path that I actually wanted to do. And when I got back to school, I started stage managing as much as I possibly could. 95, came back out to the festival. It was the festival PA, and really screwed it up. I was convinced that nobody would ever hire me ever again. And as it turned out, it was a few summers before I got back into stage management out there. So I had a few summers where I was the Randall crew head / assistant props manager, something like that. I forget the exact title. And then moved into stage management from there. And I continued stage managing at the festival through the summer of, I want to say 02 or something like that. And then kept stage managing around the country, eventually ending up with Cirque du Soleil and a couple of their resident shows. And from there, going into production management with the Guthrie Theater, where I was for about 11 years, and moved to Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I am right now, and as director of production for the Alliance Theater. And 2020 happened. Now here we are.
Thanks, Trevor.
Yeah.
Becky Merold, tell us a little bit about your background, how you connected to the festival.
Yes. So I am currently the production manager at the Arizona Theater Company, located in Tucson, Arizona. Prior to that, I was the production manager at the Utah Shakespeare Festival, but I did I started my career as a stage manager, and I started in 2003, the summer of 2003. I was actually, prior to that, I was an intern with Carrie Lawless at the Milwaukee Repertory Theater. Carrie Lawless was the festival stage manager for a long time at the festival, and the production manager at the Milwaukee Rep. So she got me my first summer gig out there at the festival as the scheduling stage manager, which is the person that has to schedule all 300 people of the festival every moment of their lives. So I did that for my first summer, and the next summer I had turned equity, which now is mind baffling that is what happened. And I became, because I was very young, I became an equity stage manager out there and stage managed for like 10 years as just an equity stage manager, and then became the festival stage manager for about 3 seasons, and then became the production manager. So I have a total of 17 years consecutively at the festival.
Wow.
Cool.
And then I left in 2019 because an opportunity came up here in Arizona. So I moved out here last summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then 2020 happened, but yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ray Inkel, tell us about your background and how you're connected with the festival.
Well, great. It's great to be here. Michael, I now realize, well, I'm feeling old, but I now realize how you look at all of your students and how you're so proud of what everybody is doing. I am currently the production manager at the Alley Theater in Houston, Texas, and have been here for about 8 years. Before that, I was at the Shakespeare Festival. So from 2000 to 2012, I was the production manager at the Shakespeare Festival. During that time, Trevor was there as a stage manager, and Becky was there as a stage manager, and Richard was there as our scenery director. And so it's great to see everybody and where they're all going. Unlike Trevor and Becky, I came at this from a technical direction background early on in my career in theater, and did a lot of that, but then eventually got into production management and was at a couple of companies before coming to the festival. In fact, we turned a corner at the festival. It was the 40th year of the festival when they hired me to be the first full-time production manager. So they'd always been a seasonal, very seasonal company. And so that was a big challenge and a big change. Cameron Harvey and Doug Cook had been handling so much of that, and they finally turned that over. So I'm happy that I was able to do that for so many years, and then get so many other people involved in production management and see where everybody is. So that's my history with the festival.
Well, thanks, Ray. Yeah, it is kind of wild to see the connectivity of all of us, and certainly we all have stayed connected over the years, and advice and all those things, and now here we all are trying to manage this theatrical environment. So this may be the hardest question of today, because I mean, there are lots of hard questions out there, but this may be the hardest one we address, is because I'll be honest, I'm not sure I know the answer to this question. What is production management, and what is it to be a production manager? And I'm like, okay, so who do I want to put on the spot to try and answer this first? Because everybody else will get to just kind of add in. But because, you know, he's been our mentor, I think. I think, Ray, you might be, I think I'm going to put you on the spot there.
Guess I got the short straw, huh?
Yeah, yep. So can you tell us what you think what it means to be a production
well,
manager?
you know, when I talk to people about production management and they go, what is this thing in theater? And I have the easy way to describe it, to understand it, but it is obviously much more in depth. But basically, I say that anything that's happening on the stage is what we're responsible for as production managers, right? The director gets all the credits when anything goes right, and the production manager has to deal with all the negative things when things go wrong. So that's how fun our job is. In the end, though, production management really it's making it all happen. I like to think of it as, you titled your seminar developing the creative culture, or managing the creative culture. And I think that's what it is. We can get too much in depth about all of the smaller pieces, making sure that, you know, scenery is done, or props are done, or costumes are done, but it's watching the creative growth from the vision of the director and making that actually happen on stage, which is what our arc follows as a production manager, trying to make that all happen. And that's the most exciting part of it. You go from that vision and then finally seeing it on stage. And there are lots of ups and downs in between it. But that's kind of the general way that I view production management, and what my role is to make it all happen from that person's vision. And so hope we are doing it right.
We're never really sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Trevor, anything to add there? Any other perspective?
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden words fail. Because it is, right? It's one of those things you can, I usually equate production management, much like stage management, in the way that you ask 25 people to explain it, you're going to get at least 52 different answers. Because not only is every person's vector on getting to the work different, but also everybody's perception of how and what it means to be successful is very different. You know, a lot of what I learned, Ray mentioned the mentoring thing. There's something that I picked up from him, and that I mention practically every time I do an interview these days, is that I manage by walking around. It's like, I don't sit back and let the things happen. I want to be in front of people. I want to have the face behind the email to be able to say, this is the person you're talking to. This is, I'm a real person. I really am invested in your work. And that is not, I think it's worth mentioning, that is not the way that every production manager views their work, or indeed wants to work. So there's many ways of doing it, and I feel bad for our friends who are designers and directors, the kind of more transient among us who go from theater to theater, because they're not only dealing with entirely different systems most of the time, but they're dealing with these different personalities of how to approach the work. So, you know, it's tricky. It's tricky when we all get in a room and we talk to each other, because we're all violently adhered to the way that we want to do them. And it's hard to be kind of told that there is a better way, and we all should be looking for the better way all the time. And but that's a completely different discussion, probably separate from this
We
one.
can get there.
We could get there, but it's, how long do you have?
Right. No, I think it's a really valid point. Just the idea that each of us brings something different. The combination of each of our experiences, perspective, the theater and the culture of that theater, and community that we work in will all sort of really inform how each of us approaches it, and it'll probably evolve. Hopefully we aren't static, and we continue to sort of change and do different things as we learn different things.
Becky, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think, of course not, words fail. Just exactly what Trevor was saying, like every theater is different. Like what I needed to do for the, Utah Shakespeare Festival is completely different. Not completely, but it is different from what I do here at Arizona Theater Company. There are different challenges in each theater, different personalities that you have to deal with. And so some of those require adaptation of the style in which I have to work as well. And different theaters have, everyone is structured so differently amongst even like Lort theaters or Shakespeare theaters. Sometimes, sometimes you have a finance person, sometimes you don't.
Right.
Sometimes you have a general manager, sometimes you don't. So like at Utah, I didn't handle designer contracts. Here I do all of the designer contracts. So like it can be different. I mean, the going from the design through the opening night is usually pretty much the same anywhere, but then all the rest of it, all the organization and scheduling and everything like that can be different from place to place.
Yeah.
And I also feel like the relationship between the production manager and the, in my case, artistic director is a very important thing that is, because so much of their vision has to be what you put forth, whether or not they're directing the play, it is still their artistic vision for the whole company. And so like, I feel like you really need to find a place as a production manager where you can be a real team together with an artistic director. And that helps me feel more fulfilled.
Cool.
Yeah. Would you say, Becky, that like, you know, it may seem like production managers are very nuts and bolts, and that's a huge part of what we do, but like we're artists in a sense that we, as you're saying, we have to advocate for an artistic vision. We have to understand it. We have to buy into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I also like coming from stage management, people say like stage managers aren't artists, but the good ones really are.
Mhm.
They really are. They make the show just flow every night. And I think it's the same for production management. We have to get all the nuts and bolts in order so that the vision of the show can happen. And some of that is artistry. Some of that is in the way we can communicate with people. Like sometimes I find sometimes directors and designers can get too much into the nuts and bolts. And then you're like, no, stop thinking about that. Just think of the vision. Let me and my team as artists come up with how we can do it and if we can do it. But just go with what your visions are. So
one phrase that I often use in the work that we do is creative, collaborative problem solving, right?
Mhm.
We always have a problem to solve. How do we do this? Whatever this play is, we have to work together to make that happen. And sometimes we come up with, very creative ways to do that. So I think that encapsulates sort of a little bit of that process too, creative, collaborative problem solving.
Right. That would be my new bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I want to back up just a little because I want people to really understand, and you guys kind of went into this already, but understand a little bit about how like you became you. And I always think, like, for me, it's a very formative thing when I think about how I got into theater. Like, how did I get into this?
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to get a sense from y'all, like what was that first thing that like got you hooked and got you involved? And Becky, if you don't mind, can I throw that one to you first?
Yeah. So my parents always loved the theater. We didn't really go that much, but they went before kids. They call it BC. All the time they went to the Stratford Festival all the time. But then in high school, my best friend I had quit band because I had a horrible band teacher. And so my friend was like, oh, you should come we were doing a production of MASH at the high school. And she was like, you should come be backstage with me. There are so many cute boys. And I was like, done. So I went backstage and then I've never looked back. I just loved it. I loved being backstage. I auditioned once and was like, I didn't get cast, but like I hated the audition process so much that I was like, never doing that again. And then just always loved being backstage and helping. In high school, it's different but I was always called the stage manager, but we helped build the sets, we helped build the props, we did a little bit of everything, plus we ran the show, and I just loved helping to organize it all and bring it together. And so that just hooked me. So.
Very cool. Ray, how about the same question?
Very similar. High school is that entry point for getting into a lot of things. I remember my parents did go to shows. We had a community playhouse that we would go to a lot. And I remember my second grade teacher was in a lot of those shows. So I remember a couple of those times. My parents always tell the story that, we went to the show and the fact that I got to see her after the show in her costume and I was so excited about it. I don't remember that much, but parents tell all those stories. But it really started in high school when they needed somebody to fill in the roles. They didn't have enough people audition, I guess. So we were doing Taming of the Shrew. So I started off with Shakespeare. And so, lots of connections there. But I was cast as Vincentio, the father, and did that. But during rehearsals, I found out that on Saturdays, you come in and you build the scenery and you paint the scenery and you make props. And I was like, oh, this is much more exciting than that on stage sort of thing. And so I started doing that. And I continued to act in high school. I wanted to really be in musicals. but unfortunately I always got the non-singing roles in the musicals. So that tells you what my vocal abilities are. Until my senior year when I was cast as the sergeant of police in the Pirates of Penzance.
Ah, perfect.
So
Parental.
go from not having any
Yeah,
singing
exactly.
roles in the musicals to being in that, and it was a terrifying time. But I got to make all the props and design the scenery, and so I was hooked from there. And I've been lucky enough that I've actually worked in the theater my entire kind of career. Even in high school summers, I was connected up with another theater company, summer theater company, to go work, and into college and into graduate school and all of that. So I'm lucky in that way, but I know there's other people who find other routes into all of this too.
Cool.
Very cool. Trevor, how about you?
Mine sounds a lot like Becky's. So I was still in band. It was early enough in the year that it was still really, really hot outside, and we rehearsed. We practiced. It was band. We practiced on on the blacktop parking lot, and it was one of those really humid days, and the sun was beating down. It was miserable, and this cute redhead swung by and said, "Hey, we're auditioning for this show." And I was like, "Great." Handed my instrument off and went it back indoors where it was air conditioned. And it was for The Foreigner. I got the role as Charlie Baker.
Wow.
And yeah, and the rest, as they say, is kind of history. Except I didn't realize it at the time, and that's the kind of wrinkle in it, is that I was actually going to do that through high school as kind of this fun little lark thing to do, right? And then I had this scholarship to study computer science in Rochester, New York, and I actually went and started doing that. And then almost at the end of the first quarter, I was, no, I'm miserable. This is not what I should be doing. And I threw all that away, much to my parents and my family's, they were thrilled. They were totally chuffed about that decision. That was sarcasm, in case anybody was tracking that. So, but that was the entry point. That was the first point of like, I don't know what my life looks like if I'm not doing this, even though this changed quite a bit over the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Cool.
How many band geeks? So I'm totally, yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
We got to do this. What instrument do you play? Trevor, what do you play?
I played trombone, baritone, horn, and euphonium.
Cool. And Becky?
Flute and
Flute?
piccolo.
Richard?
Started as trumpet and then went to tuba.
Cool. And Ray?
Also in the bass section, trombones.
Right on. Low bass. Woo!
I want to ask this, and you've already kind of alluded to it. Because we have stage managers here, we know that there is a lot of organization and structures about this job, et cetera. But we also have two with Richard and Ray who are coming in from kind of the technical direction standpoint. So if you can brag about yourself, what do you think are 2 or 3 gifts that you need to be a successful production manager? What are the gifts that, we're hiring a production manager, this is what we need, because you find a lot of people who cross over from the stage management world into the production management world, but you also find a lot of technical direction. And we've talked here in seminars about what a technical director is, et cetera. So what are the gifts, what are the superpowers that a production manager needs to be successful? Who wants to take that?
I'll throw in the one thing that comes to me immediately, because I do it. I feel like I do it constantly. Is predictive analysis of a room. I know what's going to go wrong, and I need to know what's going to go wrong about 4 steps before everybody else knows what it is. And
that's fantastic. I hope.
Well, and that's to my mind, that's a very stage management kind of thing. It's like, I feel this, like, I didn't hear that cue right, or that light there's something off. I can't put a finger on it. I know it's off. So I need to make sure that the next 5 beats are taken care of.
Cool.
And I think that goes for production meetings. I think it goes for being in the room during a tech. I think it goes for if I just happen to be watching a show, you know, which kind of sucks because you can't let go of that,
Well,
and then you can't
and
enjoy
if I
it.
can, it's not just the show, it's productive analysis of the room and the culture in the organization and say, wow, if we don't fix this, we're going to have a problem in 3 months, right?
Right. And knowing a little bit of, knowing enough about yourself and enough about the culture. Richard mentioned like that the theaters are living, breathing organisms in and of themselves, and they all have a culture. Knowing when to cut bait, like knowing that this is too big for this one person, this one human to solve. I need to find my, either need to find my allies, or I need to know, see ya, and
That's
exit
great.
stage left.
No, well said. Well said. Good. What else? What's another superpower that you either you possess or you know that as a production manager you need to have?
Communication. I mean, that goes with what Trevor was saying, and that's you just have to be able to communicate with all different kinds of people, from the artists to the accountant to the carpenter, and sometimes it requires translation, because sometimes people are saying, a lot of times it involves translation. Because you know, the designer was saying one thing and the TD or the carpenter is interpreting that a different way when really they're saying the same thing. And so it's understanding all of those different viewpoints and figuring out how to communicate and translate between them.
Yeah. No, well said. And I think many times, you know, you've got the artistic director who's saying one thing, you've got the TD who's saying another thing, you've got this, and you have to be the one, as Ray mentioned about 10 minutes ago, to manage, to understand. You have to speak both languages. You have to make sure those two groups speak to one another. So good. Ray?
Well, I guess I put mine in a larger thing. It again, it incorporates everything that Trevor and Becky have said, but I kind of think of it as people management, and that's different than being a technical director. Stage management has a little bit more of that, I guess, you know, because they're always in a room with people, but that was one of the things that drew me to production management. So people management, and it's interesting that for a lot of us as production managers, we don't actually have the in-depth training and a lot of those things that go with it, which are leadership training, yes, or communication training or negotiation training, or all of that. We just kind of do it and pick it up as we go, right? I remember as Becky talks about communication and translating things, that, you know, at first you think, oh, these meetings that we have at the end of shows where we're talking about things, that's really easy. The production manager just kind of says, okay, scenery, what do you have? Lighting, what kind of questions do you have? And, you know, when you just watch it, it looks like, oh, they're just going around the room and asking people things. But it goes back to what Trevor has talked about, which is, okay, what's going on? I need to pull some information from you. So what is this? And Becky has said, it's okay, you've just said one thing, you've said another thing, it's really the same. So at first it seems easy, but it's all this people management, and, you know, it all comes down to herding the cats.
Well, knowing when to sidebar a meeting too. You know, you don't have everybody sitting in the room while two people like are screaming at each other.
Yes.
Well, and knowing when, having been a fly on the wall in those meetings, and I've seen really great management of those meetings where, and I'm going to bring something back before Ray. Ray, our organization really amped up. And I remember sitting on watching Cam Harvey run one of those meetings long ago, before there was a production manager. And he was a man of few words, you know, quiet, but could tell which way the wind was blowing. And it's knowing this person is not talking, but you need to make sure that this person has a voice right now, because if they don't speak, we're not going to be in very good shape. And so it's knowing which way the wind is blowing, even though nobody else can feel it with that, which is, again, I think it's one of those amazing things that we don't necessarily talk about. And you wouldn't think, I'm glad you articulated that way, Ray, production management, oh, well, you deal with things technical, you know. But in reality, your calendars, budgets, but most important, people, where are the people in that equation?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of nuance to sort
Yeah.
of leading people and finding those leading questions to like pull that information. And to what Ray was saying, we don't like, it was the thing when I was like, well, how do you, what training helped prepare you to do this job is one of my questions for everybody. But there's not a lot
There's
that
not.
focuses on things that aren't technical. Like you learn technical skills as a TD, and learn how to figure out how to break stuff. Like figure out how it's going to break so you can not break it. Predictive analysis, figure out how to make it not do that. But now we're talking about people and relationships and teams, and often people that aren't working together for very long periods of time. You might have an established staff, but you're bringing in designers who are freelance and things like that, and you have to make those people, not make those people, you have to provide an environment for where those
Yes.
people can communicate and be advocates for people who may not get that advocacy in the room, and really just going around the room in a production meeting and trying to get certain folks who maybe just don't want to, who are excellent technical people, how to get them to convey concerns, or why are you afraid to reach out to your designer if you have a question, or vice versa, like just take me out of it, go talk to him. All those little things are really hard to learn, really hard to teach, and there's not a lot of preparation for that in the business. I guess along that line though, are there things that you have seen in training or that you've been able to be trained in that have sort of given you that next step for production management? Once, say, you've, as you see, most of us have moved up through some other discipline. We didn't come out of the womb as production managers, right? So, we've developed, but are there things that you've seen that are effective and stuff maybe you want to see more of in training to help people learn these kind of skills to be effective production managers? Anything that you really have enjoyed or thought was really super important?
Well, I'll just say that certainly I think there's more accessibility now for people who want to learn these skills. Certainly when I started in production management, which was unfortunately before Trevor started working in the theater. That makes me feel old. So there really wasn't production management stuff. They didn't know what a production manager was when I started all of this stuff. I didn't know what it was. I went to school to be a technical director because there weren't production managers. And it slowly has grown. So I think that has helped and changed a lot if you actually go through a program or those kinds of things. But to me, it still comes back to whenever I hear about those seminars that my managing director is going to, or the general manager, or those kinds of things, you're like, ooh, that sounds really exciting. I should learn that too, whether it is something about budgeting and accounting or all of that. I guess where I go with learning skills for production management is continuing to pull in all the skills from the other areas. So not only in theater, I'm lucky enough that I did do technical direction and set design and worked in a costume shop for a while and did some lighting and all of that. So you understand what that is, you can translate better, sort of like learning the languages. But then to go through and do programs like, in fact, a really good example is the SUU Arts Administration Program, right? Which came about while I was there. And it's helped a lot of people go through that program and learn those leadership skills and all of those kinds of things. So those MBAs, those MFA Arts Administration programs, those are really useful, but who has time to do all of that when you're trying to get a show up?
Yeah.
Totally. I want to shift gears a little bit, but I first want to remind everyone to ask some questions on Facebook. If anybody has anything for this group of folks, they go ahead and put that in the comments, and we'll try to get to those here in the last part of the meeting. We do have a question. I'm going to go ahead and throw it in here since we have one from Eric. I'm interested in hearing about some of the best of your job experiences and some of the worst or most embarrassing. Let's go with the best, and kind of let me sort of, I don't know, package it a little bit and say, like, what do you like the most about your job? And if you have some examples about best things that reflect that. So, what do you like best about to being a PM and give me some like experiences that show that. Trevor, you got anything?
Yeah. Without a doubt, my favorite part of the show's life cycle, and I'm counting from the time that somebody says, wouldn't it be a cool idea if we do the show this season, all the way through the closing and the strike of that show. My favorite part is invited dress, because that's the time where we put in the actual last part of the whole thing. We've got the sets, we got the props, we got the costumes, we've got the sound, we've got the lights, we've got all the actors, we've got everybody is in the room except for the audience. And we don't know, we think we know, but we don't know that we've done a good job until we get those audience members in there and they enjoy or not what we've done. And that to me is always a highlight, always will be. And there have been times where that is so profound. You know, you sit there, I usually hide behind a tech table, but you sit there with the audience, hundreds of people in that room, they've never seen what you're about to show them. And they react the way that you think they might react. And then they don't at points too. And it's amazing. It's the best feels.
Yeah. Is there an example of like sometime you were really surprised by that?
Oh, yeah. Well, usually when I'm surprised by it, it's because as production managers or as any theater maker, really, you get to a point that you are kind of tired of what you're doing, you know, especially when it relates to a specific show. So you've gone all the way through all those steps up to that point, and you're just like, this show is trash, man. This doesn't, there's no way in the world that this is going to fly. And then the audience proves you wrong. And there's you know, I've got like a couple hundred shows behind me. So it's like, that has happened enough that I am not surprised by it, but at the same time, I'm thrilled by it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Very cool. So on the flip side, I guess, like, you know, are there things that you find really challenging? And is there something that like really identifies that challenge within the job? That's like, this is a really hard part of being a production manager. It's always kind of hard. And maybe is there an example of something, without getting too specific, of how that sort of manifests itself over and over again? Becky, I'm gonna throw that one to you. That's a hard one.
See that
Okay,
smile.
actually, my favorite
Oh, okay,
part,
hit that first.
my
Sure.
least favorite part are the same.
Okay.
But they're different parts, and that is scheduling. So in the whole calendar that Trevor was talking about, my favorite time is when we've decided a season, and then artistic director comes, they've decided what they want to do, and they are like, here are the shows. And I have to figure out how to get them all in, what it's going to take to do each show. And I get to calendar that all out. And at the festival, it's like, which show is going to be with which show, and how do you do changeovers? Love that. My least favorite part about scheduling is getting a design meeting together, because inevitably people will tell you, designers, directors, doodle poll is your friend, which is great. Everyone fills out the doodle poll. You think, great, everyone's available for this time. Then you send out a meeting request, and all of a sudden 4 of them can't make that time. And you're like, but I did the doodle poll.
The fact that we're all laughing, it's funny because it's true, right?
Says that it's all the same everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to grab people from all over the country, and now with Zoom
Or the globe.
I mean, you think with all of us on Zoom it would be easier. You really do, but
it's not. I just tried to schedule a design meeting the other day, and then at the last minute, and things come up, and I get it, but at the last minute, it was like, oh, we have to move this meeting.
Tanya, our festival stage manager, who's watching questions for us, is laughing as well, because a large part of what she has to do is also the same thing, getting people together. Ray, anything to add? A favorite or a least favorite you want to throw in?
Mine all come back. It connects the dots. It's I said that production managing is about people management, and people are the best things about this. I mean, I look at this screen, and this is one of the reasons I do it, is because we meet such great people in the work that we do. And we get to meet people from around the country and around the world and work with them and develop relationships. You know, I think about friends of mine who are not in the theater, and you don't get to do that in your regular life if you work at the Worldwide Widget Factory, or if you do other things. We're meeting new people every 3 or 4 months. You just add more friends on those relationships, and that's the best part of why I do theater.
Cool.
I'm not going to tell you the worst. No.
I do want to follow up with some of the stuff we were talking about before. You know, how do you train a production manager? What resources do you have? How do you do that? There's an organization, the Production Managers Forum, which I know all of you are a part of. I know that because you would come back to meetings and say, well, we were just discussing the other day on the Production Managers Forum.
Right.
And I thought to myself, what a magic room full of these group of people, all dealing with kind of the same thing in each of their organizations, but in very different ways. So you could follow and chart trends in the theater. You could you could get ideas from one another. So share a little bit about the importance of that network and the collaboration between each other as you're all, trying to navigate the cultural storms of your organizations. How does Production Managers Forum and how does that association help with that?
I'm going to start. So Utah Shakes was my first production manager job. And it was, really intimidating. But that forum was so great because I remember going to my first meeting and it's so welcoming and everyone is so willing to give you advice. Ray was a great resource for me because we had known each other, which was great in helping me get my feet under me in that job. But the forum itself is also does that. And there are mentorship opportunities there. And then just to throw out anything, like I feel totally comfortable throwing out any question onto that forum. Literally about anything. So if you needed a technical advice, like, has anybody used this fog machine before? That goes on there to, to dealing with certain personalities, and people are always willing to hop on the phone. And I think all of us that are in that forum, because we've all asked questions, we're also all willing to answer questions. So that's also really great. It's a lot of give and take. So it's,
Cool. I wanted to celebrate that group, that there's this group of minds that could take over the world if they wanted, but they never would because they are so generous of heart.
Well, here's the challenge we have with the Production Managers Forum, which is we're all a bunch of production managers, right? So we want to control things, but we're not a real organization. We're a loose network of people helping each other. And when we have these meetings and other things, it's sort of like nobody wants to take control, but we all want to take control. So you're like, am I supposed to do something or not? And so, there's a part of it that also teaches us to step back every once in a while and let somebody else handle it. So,
Trevor, you were nodding your head through that whole exchange. You have any comments on that?
Well, like Becky said, the usefulness, of course, is there. It's that kind of immediate knowledge well of, if you extrapolated the amount of people and the amount of time spent in the theater, you're talking about probably thousands of years worth of accumulated knowledge. So that's wonderful. And it is, Becky and I were talking about this a little bit in the green room beforehand, is, somebody she works with lifted up something that they did over at ATC. And I immediately emailed him back and said, tell me more. Right now, I need this information. And he was willing to do that. And, it's just indicative, I think, of not only production management, but more broadly theater. It's an art form that we love to share. We love to share it out to the patron. We love to share it with ourselves, and we love to share it to the next generation, whomever they are. And hopefully we'll get better at that last part over the next handful of years. But yeah, I think that's where we are.
Good.
Very cool. So just kind of, turning out away from experience and sort of how we got here, I kind of want to talk about where we're going. And I think, all of this uncertainty that we live in, and, whether it's COVID related or social, and just, today is the 5th of November. I think I have to at least say, we're a couple days after election, we're hoping for results on. I know I'm not supposed to mention the election, but I can't not. I just kind of want to know what everybody's feeling about where they think we're going, or maybe even better, what you hope will happen as we change, as we come back, or what we return to, what your hopes are for the future of theater, primarily, and maybe how that reflects the greater world. I know it's a lot of what we talk about here at the festival now. I'm sure all of you talk about it a lot back in your theaters and homes, but love to kind of get your perspective on where you think and hope we are going with theater, and how your job relates to that. Anybody want to take on the giant existential question? Because I don't know. Ray, any thoughts down there? Anything?
Gosh, that's a big question. No, and it also provides the anxiety that we live with right now in the world of COVID and everything else. Where are we going? We're, as Trevor mentioned, he is one of those that's unfortunately stuck in the middle right now as COVID goes on. Becky and I are lucky that we're still working and producing as you are at the festival, but what does it become? And, for me, I look at it, and we know that we're going to be spending more time on our Zooms and our digital work and all of that. But I keep taking it back to that the theater is primarily here to tell stories, and we just have to figure out how to use new technology to tell the stories and get it out to people. So whether that's getting all the people into a theater and sitting together, or sending it out as we are now over Facebook Live or streaming or whatever it is, we still have to be the keepers of the stories of what our humanity is and what we're reaching out for. And so that's where I take kind of heart in terms of what we do. It might change how we do it, but we're still doing the same thing, just using some different technology, different ways to do it. And you know what? We are, what did I say at the beginning? Creative, collaborative problem solvers.
Yeah.
So we're going to come through this because we're going to figure out how to use all this stuff in ways that nobody ever thought they could, and really make it work. And I think that's going to be exciting and excellent. And I'm sure patrons here have seen some things from around the world of different streamed video, digital things that are really exciting. And I think we're just going to keep growing with it. I do think that there's someday we're going to come back as audience and performers together in a room, and it will be even more important for us to be in that room together. We often talk about it, right? We always say that. Isn't it great when we get the room together and the room can experience something together? But for a lot of audience members, I don't think they get it until maybe now when we've missed it and we come back and they'll really get it. They just think, oh yeah, I'm just going out for a night at the theater. What does it matter if I'm watching theater, if I watch a movie and whatever? But I think they'll get it after this, that it's so important that we are sharing in the same space what we're trying to do.
Cool. Yeah, and something that Ray said there at the end reminds me, it's the thing that on the one hand worries me, on the other hand makes me a little hopeful for the next thing. And Richard, you know this from our work together at the Guthrie. I'm very interested in educating a patron, or like getting more knowledge out there about what it is we do and how we do it. Things like this are amazing for that, but I think that we need to really focus and drill down hard on the best ways to tell the stories behind the stories, so that we don't have this public perception anymore of, oh, they're just hobbyists. They're just doing this as a lark. They're just doing this because it's something that makes them feel good. If they had a real job, they wouldn't be hurting right now. And even our patrons, even our most stalwart patrons who are in there watching these shows, they don't really get it. Like Ray said, it's you don't understand what it means to be those people that are putting on these shows. And I would like to see us, the royal us of American theater, to put more of those stories in the forefront and really help educate the patron about what it is that they're seeing, how it is that they're experiencing these things. Because yeah, we're hurting, but it is our passion. It is the thing that is most important to us, and we need to be doing it.
Cool.
Absolutely.
And to just jump off of what Trevor was saying, yeah, it's about the people. For me, my hopes and dreams are that this COVID, it has made me realize the importance of work-life balance and taking care of myself. And so often, because theaters are not for profits, these people that are working full-time jobs are barely making poverty sometimes. You know, they're barely making poverty wages. They're sometimes living below the poverty wage, and now they can't work at all. And so that's just, that's really tough. So, you know, I hope that in the future, and so they're barely making poverty wages, and we're working them like 80 hours a week, so they can't get another job. So my hopes and dreams are that we can create a new theater environment where we are more healthy, where we have more work-life balance, we pay people a living wage for this work, because it is important work that we are doing, and it is our full-time jobs, just like what Trevor was saying. The arts industry, I think I saw somewhere, it's like $800 billion they put towards the GDP. Like, it's more than the transportation industry, and yet they're getting bailouts and we're not. So it's so important.
Cool.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for that. There's so many things that, like, I think about that I want to come back and I want us all to be together, but what a tragedy it would be if we came back and we didn't change and we didn't make some adjustments, you know, to your point, Becky, about, you know, and Trevor and everyone, the legitimate nature of the work, the sort of, the show must go on. Well, at what point is that true? You know, that there might be a place in which maybe not. I mean, right now we're being forced not to, but there's also some other things about our lives that need to be taken to that balance. I really appreciate your honest responses to that question. Switching it over a little, backtracking a little, Tanya had a great question, because we talked about sort of, you know, how your work has been shaped. I just want to put this out there. USF works in a model that is very different from the way many theaters work. How has it, if it has, sort of affected your work or shaped how you work outside of the Utah Shakespeare Festival? How's this sort of as a training program? I think I like to say a lot that the festival does train people quite a bit. There's so many people that go through this place. How has it sort of affected your work, and maybe your perspective now? Becky, do you want to?
Yeah. So doing 8, 9, 10 shows at one time is crazy. And here at Arizona Theater Company, we do typically 6 shows in a season. But we like to say we do 12, because we take every single show from Tucson, we run it for 2 weeks here, and then we take it to Phoenix. So the rep model has actually taught me a lot about like all the logistics of that transfer, because granted, we don't transfer at Utah, you guys don't transfer between theaters, but still changing a show out every day, the way in which I need to talk to lights and sound, like, have we packed those things? Is that going to be in a way that it can easily disconnect and reconnect? All those technical things that I learned, and the scheduling nightmare that is Utah Shakes, has made it, I see those puzzles just in what I'm doing here. I can solve them. So that for me is, I think, one of the big things that I have learned and been able to take into this job.
Ray, I see you nodding your head.
I agree with all of that. It's the festival, like a lot of summer theaters, have, you know, it's an interesting challenge doing shows in rep doing many of those shows, playing for those patrons so that they get the full experience while they're there. And it does teach you a lot because you're able to take the microcosm of any one show out of that to be able to learn how to deal with something smaller, or take all of it. And then it doesn't scare you when your artistic director says, oh, I'm thinking about doing these 2 shows in rep. That would be really difficult, right? And you're like, no, but it's going to cost you money. It'll cost you a lot of money because you need a lot of people. But no, it is, you know, I think that for me, I guess I went in a different direction when you asked that question about the festival and preparing me. There's something that I love about the festival and other summer theater groups that happens, which is you are bringing all of these people together for a single cause that season to create all of this. And it is very different in a place like the Alley or some others where you're doing a season throughout the year. You've got a full-time staff that's there that you have to keep motivated throughout that whole year. Whereas this is built-in motivation energy that just kind of propels us forward on that first day of meeting everybody, whether you're still cooking hamburgers out there or what, and going to the end of the show, the season, there's an energy that's there. How do you harness that, and how do you keep that going for a year-round theater? And that's, you know, trying to take that into everything that we do is really important for me. That's what I've learned, is there is something about that motivation and that energy and that excitement that you have to harness in a different way in the work that we do outside of the festival.
Cool. Good. Trevor?
I won't go, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things I learned, but I will share this anecdote. The United States Institute of Theater Technology National Convention, I think it was in 07, if I remember correctly. USF was being honored for something. They went up on the stage at the opening ceremony and got a plaque. R. Scott was there, and Fred was there. Fred, yeah. And so they addressed the crowd, and Scott said something that it did something that was really inspired, I thought. So there's this mass of people, probably 1,200 people in that theater, and he says, anybody who has worked at the festival at any point, stand up. Fully half the room stood up. And that speaks not only to the theater itself, but what Ray's talking about. You know, you do these summer festival things, you bring in everybody, and they just explode out. And somebody that I met 20 some odd years ago may remember that, or I may run into them in a different set of circumstances, and it would be like, yeah, I know what you went through. You know, it's that, it's that kind of like immediate, oh yeah, I know that you know how to do this because I did it too. And yeah, and that's great. I love that.
Cool. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that conference. That was cool. Thank you all. You know, we're kind of getting to close to the end here, and I just wanted to I wanted to say thank you, of course, but also just see if there was any last thoughts from anybody, any last comments about what we've talked about, or anything you want to leave this seminar with before we go.
Yeah, I want to pose it with a question.
Oh, sure.
You don't have to take a lot of time on this. Just if you heard someone got hired as a production manager somewhere, what's the one thing you would tell them? What's the one thing? Just a nugget of knowledge. One nugget of knowledge. If they just got hired on as a production manager, what would you tell them? Ray?
Don't schedule things to midnight.
Right.
Just don't.
Gosh, what would I tell them? What did I tell you, Becky? I don't know.
That's
The
cheating.
first thing you did was actually sign me up for the production managers forum.
There we go. Well, maybe that's it. I would say there's a group of us that are all here ready to help, and we want to help with that. So yeah, I guess that might be my knowledge that I would pass on to somebody.
Cool. Becky, you have anything?
Just don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, and I guess that goes to what the production manager forum. Don't be afraid to ask for help from anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you shared yours, Trevor, which is a real thing. Don't schedule it up to midnight, but yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. No, Becky did actually tell me that. She reached out and she's like, hey, if you need anything, give me a call.
Oh,
Because
sweet.
the truth is, this is a very lonely job. It can be very isolating, and you're sort of, you know, you get in these rooms where people are all looking at you, and you're like, "What? I'm supposed to know the answer, huh?" And you look, and I used to look, and you know, Ray was back there, and I could ask him, or Trevor was over here, I could ask him, and you know, There's nobody there. So you're the person in the room. So yeah, there is a network of people, and it's really nice to have this network of people here to share their experience, their knowledge, their expertise, their passion, which I hope all of you who are watching can tell. Obviously, all these people care deeply about this work. And without that passion for what we do and that commitment, all the other folks, I think, it'd be a lot harder for them to do what they need to do without these people. So thank you for your time, your generosity to be here with us today, and thank you for your commitment. And personally, thank you for each of you being colleagues for me and mentors, and being in my corner all these years to help me to get where I am now. So thank you so much for that. Turn it over to you, Michael.
Absolutely. We are so incredibly grateful, so grateful that you're going to, I think you're unsung heroes. You're those people behind the curtain that make that magic. Who is that behind the curtain? You go, oh, this is why it happens. So I was really looking forward to this conversation, and it did not disappoint. So thank you. Thank you for what you've given to the festival, making the festival what it is and is now presently. As Ray was talking about those stories about how he was the first production manager and how we, solved those challenges. I've got memories with each of you. And USF is what it is because of what you have all brought to this work. And I'm also thinking it's really, really great that you have then taken that out and those dreams are happening in other theaters as well. So thank you. Thank you very, very, very much. I'm looking forward to next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about fight direction and intimacy direction, that part of the theater that we don't necessarily know about either. So when you see those really cool, stage combat things or a kiss on stage or all that type of stuff, what does it take to put that together? So we're going to be talking about that next week. This conversation that you just participated in, you can find on our website. You can go to bard.org. You go down to the bottom of the page where it says Virtual Festival, and all of these conversations we've been having over this whole summer are there and are available on YouTube. So you can go on YouTube and you can become, you can like us there. We'd love to have you, and the conversation will continue there as well. So thank you very, very much. Special thanks again to the people who make this possible, Cedar City and Bryan Head Tourism Bureau, and we will see you next week. Thank you. Thank you.